So my name is Diane Adjey. Welcome to the NAIT Hokanson Center for Culinary Arts. We're really pleased to have all of you bloggers here today. What we're going to do here is basically just like a date. You're going to ask questions. Dave's going to answer them. I'm also going to be live tweeting what's happening here and taking questions from tweeters. So to begin, I'm going to ask Sharon to go with the first question.
My question is, I'm always interested in when people come down to what places they eat at and what they're told to eat. So where have you eaten so far in Edmonton and where have you told to eat?
No one's really told me anywhere to eat, but I had dinner last night at Hardware Grill. I was tired, walked around the corner, asked some guys out in front of the adult XXX store. I asked them if they could break 100, and they said, yeah, around in the back alley, we can break that 100 for you. So I decided to duck into Hardware. Chef was off, which is always a great test of a restaurant. And the kitchen staff, who are all NAIT grads, it was home run after home run. Everything I ate was just outstanding. The portions are ginormous, right? I'm still getting used to the Western portion. It's very similar to the American portion. It's big, right? A lot of food on the plate, but very good.
You said you're still getting used to the Western portion. Where were you living before?
Toronto, New York City, Los Angeles. So home of the normal portion, okay? Because people are pointing and making fun of you if you don't eat it like that. Yeah, California was weird. It was really stripped down food. I do something called California cut on a steak. So I do a California cut New York, which is kind of fun when you get to say California, New York in the same sentence. And it's like, well, what's that? It's like, well, you cut all the fat off of strip loin. Well, the reason why you eat strip loin is because that fat cap is the flavor, right? So when it renders, it goes into the meat and it's delicious and yummy. In California, it's like, yeah, man, you can't have any fat on your meats. New York, because you're out 6.5 days a week, you're eating out. Right? Doesn't matter where you live. Your apartment is about half the size of this table. So you're always out eating, and so people eat very small. And a trend in Toronto seemed to be, and we'll talk more about it, so we call it very, very portion sizes. So there's really taking the same dish, instead of having bigger menus, we have like the American portion, size of, plate of food, size of your head. And then there's kind of sort of like that modern restaurant portion, and then on the far end is really the portion you should be eating, like 4 ounces of meat. There's not very many restaurants that will serve you a 4-ounce piece of meat. It's 10, 12, 14 ounces, right? So I don't know if that even answers the question, but it sounded good.
Can we take one question from Twitter?
Yeah.
What are your least favorite ingredients and most favorite ingredients to cook with?
Well, all-time least favorite ingredient is farm sturgeon for Iron Chef America, because that fish is just nasty. Has anybody ever had it? There's no bones, cartilage. It has a really creepy feeling to it. It's like you imagine cleaning a fish, but it has no bone structure. It's just all made out of cartilage. So that's the least favorite ingredient. I made a pact to myself last year. I wouldn't eat at the same restaurant twice in 1 year, and I wouldn't eat the same ingredient over the course of the year with our principal ingredient. So I really forced myself. So it's periwinkles one day. Last week I did a rabbit mole. I made my kids lobster mac and cheese. I had sardines that got flown in from Portugal. It just really depends. I'm really trying to force myself to eat out of my comfort zone.
So what kind of food did you grow up eating?
Like mungie cake food, like total, I came from a place called Scarborough, outside of Toronto. So think of the worst neighborhood in Edmonton, and then cube it, put it to the square. Scarborough's a real tough neighborhood. My folks threw a lot of dinner parties, but so they had good intentions, but they were smashed every night cooking, which that's what you did. So my mom cooked a lot of crazy things, dishes that ended in the word surprise. Like, I think it's tuna surprise. Or we used to call it, I think it's tuna, something, right? Never word casserole, because that meant structure. So my getting into food was part partly out of necessity. And when I was a kid, I said I either wanted to be a florist or a chef. So both my parents were like, yeah, chef. We're like, chef. Chef's got a uniform. So, and I still love flowers, which is kind of weird. So.
I missed what your favorite ingredient was.
It's something different. It doesn't, yeah, it's like, you know, my workhorse ingredient would definitely be lobster that I cook a lot of. Just anything, anything that you can hunt, kill, and eat in the same day is pretty darn good. Hunting by they're swimming around in the tank. It's not really a sport, but, there is an element. Can I catch it? Can I catch it?
If you had the you had a choice for the rest of your life, you could only cook for two groups, one being children, one being seniors. Who would you cook for and why? Oh,
kids for sure. Because I mean, my kids are adventurous eaters because of a lot of pressure on my part to try different food. I mean, my youngest used to cry every day when it came to the restaurant, and the rabbits were on the table, lambs. We always had the whole carcass of the lamb. You see me pulling the claws off of live lobsters and cooking them separate. And anything that was in a book that he read, like lambs, ducks, rabbits, he got really sad. And now he's the first one up. He goes, Dad, there's something about the sound of the surgical hacksaw when it cuts the lamb's head off. And he's like 10. He's just like, he goes, so he's brainwashed a bit, like, because I'm his dad. He goes, it's that connection with the animal. And he's just sawing the lamb's head off. He's like, and he flips open the carcass and moves out the kidneys out of the way and pulls the tenderloins off. Kids are easy to cook for, a lot easier, because you're bigger than them and you can scare them, okay? Old people don't listen. So my kids, same thing. So my kids would, if they didn't eat what I cooked at dinner time, we would make it into a breakfast format meal the next day. So if everyone's eating, yummy, delicious waffles and scrambled eggs, you had your scrambled eggs with snails and duck confit. It's like, but I just want it cheesy like everyone else, Dad. Well, you didn't try the snails last night, so you're gonna eat them today. So my kids would try a lot of food.
Just something that I always come across. Speaking of lamb and duck and veal and that kind of thing, in your book you mentioned that everything tastes better with veal.
Veal jus, with a sauce, a reduction of veal jus. Yeah.
So I've always had reservations about eating veal. I definitely eat lamb. I haven't had a lot of duck. But what's your comments on treatment of those types of animals and contentious ingredients in the culinary world?
I don't have any problem with ingredients, as long as it is there has to be an ethical treatment of the animal to somewhat. People lost their head about foie gras and thought about, it's force-fed. It's a force-fed animal. The Egyptians looked at the birds migrating, and when they killed the birds just before they migrated the 4,000 miles, the birds were gorging and distending their liver to fly 4,000 miles. It's weird. It's like, geez, I might get tired. I need to maybe build up a little bit of fat here so I can make the journey. So the Egyptians, well, they figured it out. The top producers of foie gras then became the French with force-fed goose. Then it moved to Israel. And a bunch of Israelis came to New York and Hudson Valley foie gras, and they were the guys that figured it out. Now, the boys at Champs-Élysées, which is our top foie gras producer, what they've done is shorten the days with music and lights. So these ducks, from little ducklings, as soon as they're born, they do rhythms of music and light to shorten this duck's days. So the day's only 4 hours long. So the music and the lights come on, it's like, oh, time to eat. Then it goes quiet like this, and then they wake up again. It's like, hey, it's time to eat. So what they've done is an ethical way of getting this bird ready for that migration, where it goes into its own feeding. Yeah, at the end of it, it's force-fed, but hey, it's damn delicious. Veal, same thing. There's producers of veal that are ethical, and there's producers of veal that isn't, right? It's hard to get away with it in smaller farms. I have a problem with a lot of factory farming, big producers. I do in one of my keynotes, and I talk about, I pick up a $35 chicken from Whole Foods, right? And then I go to Price Choppers and I get $1.19 chicken dinner. the TV dinner. And I was like, both chicken, a little bit of difference here, right? The chicken that is produced in that dinner is usually spent hens, which are egg-laying chickens, egg-laying hens. When they don't make eggs anymore, they're spent.
Can we do one question from Twitter?
Nope. Not until I get more champagne.
What inspires you to return to the kitchen every day?
Besides money? It's the only thing I've ever done. It is, it's not work for me. It's just really, it's a great art form. I get to express myself with something that's living with food. It's intimate. I love the fact that I'm a complete stranger and I'm the last person to touch your food before you put it in your mouth.
Recipe are you the most proud of that you've developed? Which one is would you say was your quintessential signature recipe that you're just so proud of?
Tell me it's tortillas.
No. A dish that I used to call lobster until I moved to the United States, and it was called Lobster Cube. And it's not a recipe because I hate that word,
Yes.
right? I just hate the word recipe because food is an expression.
Yes.
Recipe is just a loose pile of flour on the table when you make the dough, right? So yeah, I put these things around it, but there's so many variables to it. So Lobster Cube, Lobster 3 Ways, is a cover girl.
If you had to choose between being a mediocre chef and an amazing marketer, or an amazing marketer, an amazing chef and a mediocre marketer, what would you pick?
I am a mediocre chef, but it depends. Depends where I was in my career. I mean, when I was on Food and Wine in America every year does top 10 new chefs in America. That year I'd won Rising Star. I was America's Hottest Chef. Farmers Magazine called me Best New Chef in California. And I was going for Food and Wine top 10 chef. They found out I was in the under 20 cut. There's 7,000 nominees for this, and I was under 20. I didn't let anyone in my kitchen, any cook in my kitchen touch any food. I cooked everything. It was the most selfish thing I've ever done because I cooked for the stars on my wall, my 4 mobile stars that were on my wall. I cooked for the awards, and I didn't trust my cooks enough to go, listen, if this is my reputation online, I want to cook it. It consumed me. The ego part of it consumed me. And I like it better now that I've stepped back and just say, you know what, I'll cook good food. My opportunity now, because I get to go on shows like Iron Chef America and be in front of 90 million people that watch that show. So I look at it as taking that opportunity to market myself and also stand behind things that I believe in. So,
What would you say was your defining moment as a young chef that made you say, I'm so glad I went this route instead of being a florist?
My first day at the Culinary Institute of America was pretty amazing. It's a Jesuit monastery in Hyde Park, New York. 2,000 students. Everyone's a chef. Tuition was, when I went back in 1988, and I'm dating myself because I'm very old, 1988 was $38,000 US to go to school. Today it's $95,000 US. So imagine if your kid said, Mom, I wouldn't mind to get $100,000 US and I'm going to go to school for 2.5 years in New York. When I come out, I'm going to be a cook. You're like, for $100,000 US, I can make you a doctor. I can take you any to Canadian university. You can be a doctor, architect, lawyer, whatever you want. So the commitment level of the students that went in there was just insane. And that was really my moment.
Another question from Twitter. What do you think about root vegetables, especially those grown locally?
Root vegetables? I'm a supporter of all Rodney Dangerfield vegetables, and those are the no respect vegetables. So you'll see okra, collard greens, kale, parsley root, parsnips. I didn't eat a lot of that stuff when I was a kid growing up because my mom didn't like it. And the stuff that she didn't like, we never ate. Parsnips were terrible. And then I ate them and I was like, these things are yummy. Local, I don't really care. I'm a firm believer of the ripple effect. So there's local, regional, and national. First time I had the 100-mile diet, and I was in Vancouver. And the beautiful wheat farms in British Columbia. Does anybody have ever seen the beautiful wheat fields in British Columbia? Yeah, so they served me a sandwich, and because they didn't have bread, they put it on poached turnip slices, right? Because it's a 100-mile diet. It was horrendous. It's the great rock and roll swindle, okay? It doesn't mean anything. In Toronto, 5.5 million, fifth largest city between Canada and the United States, if we had a 100-mile diet, it would look like locusts came in. There wouldn't be one living thing within 100 miles of Toronto because you can't feed 5.5 million people. So I look at Canada as, you know, I always come home, most amazing country in the world, and I look at things, it's like, what is around us that is local, what's regional, and what's national? Like, I haven't found great duck in Alberta, but the best duck in the world comes from Champs-Élysées and Maryville, Quebec. And some of the best berries in Saskatchewan that I've ever tasted. And the sea urchin that comes out of Tofino, and the lobster that comes off of in Nova Scotia. And I try to teach young kids and young students that we have to be nationals when it comes to our food. We understand what local, what regional, what national. So root vegetables, whatever, I don't know. Somewhere in there was an answer.
Who are the chefs that you most admire?
David Burke, from David Burke and Donatella, because he's the only guy I know has more ex-wives than I do. Because he took food in New York when all of New York was doing one style, and he just pushed it away and did his own style, very tongue-in-cheek, was serving food on antique toy cars, weird, like he is just whacked out of his mind.
What did Dan Aykroyd get you to cook for him the most?
Uncle Dan. I got brought up the last time with Uncle Dan. I had to carve 40 pounds off of from Blues Brothers 2000. And I used to get Dan eating he's the only person I know that could eat a whole Pop-Tart. You know how hungry you got to be to fit? I've tried it. Try to fit that Pop-Tart in your mouth, because he was in the pantry and he wasn't allowed to eat it. But his thing that he missed the most that summer was my buttermilk onion rings. So every time we were cooking, and we cooked him the same meal every day for a month and cut 40 pounds off him. And there was a lot of broccoli in that. And he was like, Dave, just make some of the buttermilk onion rings and put them in the table. Don't worry, I won't eat them. And he would be eating them like a nut eats squirrel, or a squirrel eats nuts at the end of the table when I wasn't looking, jamming the onion rings in.
I know you've mentioned you like Anthony Bourdain over the years. You've brought up his name. He talks, when he was starting, he talked about Fergus Henderson in London with St. John's, and how that was a restaurant that when he was growing up, people would talk about, they would go to, and they'd come back in the kitchens and they'd mention, have you been here? It was sort of like this goal of chefs at that time in New York to go there and experience the food. Was there a restaurant that maybe was around like that for you and your group at the CIA that you would talk about? Like, have you been to like?
Yeah, we went to, 4 of us, we had saved up $250 each, and we went to eat at Lafayette in the Drake Hotel when Jean-Georges was still Jean-Georges. And we came in, 4 of us were students. We had $1,000 US for dinner. This is 1988. 1980 is a lot of dough, especially when you weren't making any money. Well, our part-time jobs, we all made $8 an hour. We went in, we told the maitre d', we had our reservation, we said, listen, we got $1,000, we want to eat, we want to drink, and we want to make sure everyone gets taken care of. Jean-Georges came out and cooked for us. Cooked for us about 23, 24 courses. And this is at the phase in his life where he threw out, there was no more stocks, no more veal jus. There was when they first started to do infused oils. So he was the innovator of infused oils. I also talk about the Liquid Center chocolate cake. I have this big long story of the Liquid Center chocolate cake. As soon as I saw my mom ordering it at the Olive Garden, I knew it was over, okay? Now, Liquid Center chocolate cake, a majority, 99 restaurants out of 100 in the world, it's a raw chocolate cake. That's what makes it Liquid Center. And Jean-Georges was the guy that stole it from Michel Brasse, a Michelin 3-star restaurant in Lagoule, France, passed by the kitchen, stole it, brought it to New York. We all stole it and so on and so on and so on. And then it gets to the Olive Garden, and my mom goes, "Isn't this delicious? It's so gooey in the center." It's like, yeah, Mom, it's raw cake batter. It's not gooey, right? So that's a whole other story of that, of how that came to be. But Jean-Georges was breaking all the rules in New York.
Another Twitter question. Which recent food trend do you think will have the largest impact both on restaurants and in home cooking?
Varied portion sizes. People will get back to realize that it's the amount of food that we're eating that's killing us all. And people will start eating.
What would you use as a binding agent in spaghetti sauce?
Nothing. Right? Listen, I make the best spaghetti sauce in the world. And all you need is $7 a can tomatoes. You can buy canned tomatoes 79 cents, and you can buy cans of tomatoes for $7. And I bought the $2.99 can, the $4.99 can, and the $6.99 can going, how could there be a difference between 79-cent can of tomatoes and $7 can of tomatoes? Time is the only thing for a binding agent. Proper reduction of the sauce. All you're trying to get is the purge off of it.
David, what do you do when you're at home on a weekend and you're just being you? What do you have for breakfast?
One of my kids on the weekend, so breakfast is, it's fun. I live now as I get to enjoy my single life yet again. I put myself in a lab. So I live literally in a concrete ceiling, concrete wall, concrete floor, lots of artwork because I can get it out of the country fast, right? You just wrap it up. 30 seconds. Yeah. The box cutters everywhere. Cut that art in, roll it up. Kids, I love you. I'll see you later. Bye. And I have just a huge studio with all kinds of pots, pans, immersion circulators, cooking. So there's phases where I'll go through where I'll cook, and I cook, and I just tell my friends to come by with Ziploc bags and Tupperware because I just needed to cook it to get out of my system. Like once I put it down and I take a picture of it, I can scrape it into the trash. I don't need to eat it. I'm satiated. I'm just like rubbing oil all over my body, feather boa on. I've taken off all my clothes. I'm walking around, normal stuff. And then I really try to, with my kids and with my friends, cook. Like when we cook the tomato sauce, and I get them around these tomatoes and I go, I know you think I'm crazy, there's $7 tomatoes, but you gotta try this sauce. Or with my kids going to market, my kids won't eat any seafood unless it's alive. All the shrimp have to be alive. We have a cooler. We walk down to TNT and they love the sound of the shrimp hitting on the inside of the cooler, right? Because they love that. They're like, it's just so much fun for them to net the shrimp, put it in the courtbouillon, put it on the big stainless steel table, throw all the shrimp on the table, and they just get to peel them and eat them. So weird stuff, not typical normal stuff.
Let's do another Twitter question.
Oh, you're crazy.
What's one Canadian specialty that the world should know about?
It's a toss-up. It's a little quirky. It's a toss-up between mini white powdered donuts and warm 50. Warm 50. You got 50 here? Labatt's 50? Oh, yeah. Canadian ingredient. I don't know. Quintessential? Okay, I like, there's Forbes Wild Food is one of Canada's only foragers. Now, he's a true forager. Nothing is farmed. Everything he's out and finds it. And he was looking for some chefs for alternatives of palm hearts. Palm hearts, big producers, Hawaii. They're very expensive. They're canned. Ever eaten like a canned water chestnut or bamboo shoot? It has that real tinny taste to it. Well, palm hearts did that same thing. And he took bulrushes and cattails, which is a very Canadian ingredient, and realized that there's a heart inside that bulrush. And he pickles the cattail hearts, and they're like palm hearts. They're so expensive. If you came to my restaurant for dinner, I'd have to charge you $100 for your entree if I put 3 slices of this stuff in it. So it's a fortune, but it is truly, I think, that's what we're about. It's about us going out and finding something crazy like cattail hearts and pickling them.
How about a couple recipe questions from Twitter? What's a good recipe that is healthy but has a lot of calories? And what's one recipe that you never give away?
if anybody asks me for to make anything, there's I grew up with that, with the old school chefs where you protected your bag of tricks, and my thing is no one makes my food better than me. So you're more than happy to write it down, watch me make it, because I'll always cook it better than you. What's a recipe that's what is it? Healthy and has a lot of calories? Yeah, that's just not. There's no such thing. Healthy and lots of calories. Lots of calories means it's bad for you.
So I've read that they're calling you the Canadian Chef Ramsey. Have you met him? What do you think?
No.
Like being called that?
No, I don't like being called that. Ramsey's, listen, he did $100 million last year, personal, that's what he did. There's all the stories of him going bankrupt. He has 6 restaurants in Dubai. He has an empire. He's an empire. He's bigger than most corporations as a single person in Canada. If you're 40 and get your 3rd Michelin star, it's like, oh my God, like what's going on? You're usually 50, you're completely broke because you've pushed all your chips on the table because you want to get that 3rd star. And for him to do it at 24 he was a superstar. It was amazing. I just, I did that style for a while because that's the way I was taught. Doesn't work. Doesn't really, people that are 22 and Gen Y, you just can't motivate them like that.
What's the worst thing you've tasted on Restaurant Makeover?
The chili with glass shards, always good with the glass shards when she smashed the chili bowl. Best thing I ever tasted, Phil's barbecue. It was awesome. I love Phil. Can't go to his restaurant because he won't let me pay. And then anything from the bowling alley, gee whiz. My God, was that bad.
Would you let Igor build your house?
I wouldn't let Igor pound nails. Igor was building the bathroom of the director's house. And she was like, you want to be on TV? He's like, yeah. And that was it.
I bake bread every day. It's just something I love doing, so I'm just curious if you get into the yeasty goodness.
I love it. I just, you know what my thing is that I've had it. I don't think you can make it at home anywhere close to the ballpark as, $100,000 steam injected deck oven. And there's ways around it.
Like I open my oven every 3 seconds with my steam gun,
Yeah. I've seen guys that have tubed it in, like have got their squirt bottle and like snake it into the oven so they don't have to open the oven door, as long as they're getting moisture in there for the crust. There's the egg, the outdoor barbecue. Anytime you can get, if you can build in your backyard, like an adobe oven, a brick oven for breads, it's just out of control. Bagels, making your own pitas. There's so many great things. I don't do enough of it, but I love it.
You're surrounded by local bloggers. How much blogging do you do? Or how much blogging do you read a lot of blogs? No. Okay.
Michael Ruhlman, I like, because he's really, really smart. Really, I'll get into it. So you'll find Michael will thread to Bourdain. We'll go over to Michael Simon. So Michael Ruhlman, the books that he writes, he's brilliant. He's based out of Cleveland, good friend of Mike Simon's. Always enjoy what he's talking about. I try to blog about my cookbook, and it's just, I should do it because I have, I travel last year 162,000 miles. I pounded. People at Air Canada love me. So I should be doing it more. And it really comes down to I don't care what I'm doing. It's never really, I just don't care what I'm doing. And that's a horrible thought, but I just don't care. Everything is fun, I'm doing it and living in the moment. So because it's fun right now, I know in 45 minutes, I'm gonna just have some more fun. It's just gonna be different. So who cares what I was doing 45 minutes ago?
All the time then, essentially.
I should be because I have so many different cities and so many different things, and people are always asking me, well, where did you eat in Memphis? Oh my God, you got to go to Rendezvous and you got to order the platter and the Lincoln. It's called the Lincoln Slab, and I get into it with people, and I realize that because people want to know where I'm eating and what's happening like that I have to do more of it. So hopefully in 2010 I can do it, and I hope that people. I think maybe the fear is it's like, so I write about it. I'm like, it's like, how many people are following you? 4. That's my fear.
Do you find then that the celebrity side of life has maybe narrowed your culinary focus, or like do you think that there's just so much and they're always having you do something that you've
I cook more than I've ever cooked in my entire career now, because I have so much freedom, because I have the opportunity to call my friends up, and I get on a plane, I go to Paris and go hang out for 2 days, and I do whatever I want, and it's just amazing. When I worked 90 hours a week and was pounding out, dinners for you or anybody else came in my restaurant, man, I was just like, it was just work. And now food has come back to the fun where I just source out an ingredient and cook something wild. So I really enjoy it now. Television is television. I gotta make a product. So that's different.
What's the funniest thing that's happened to you as a chef?
Look clean or bad? What? I don't have any good clean stories. I've been clean so far, haven't I? Most of the time? Some of it? Most of it? Like, giving you the real Dave, though. I don't know. The funniest thing was I was working in a big hotel, and we were making, have you ever seen petit fours? Layers of cake and drop fondant and little squiggles and canned caramel or crystallized lavender things on it. And the pastry chef had just made 8,000 petit fours for a wedding. True, rack mounted in the thing. And pastry department was a little bogged down because they had like 6 weddings, and we were like the grunts in the kitchen. And like, chef is like, hey, you and you, because when you're in a big kitchen, that's what your name is, you and you. Take these out past the pool. You'll see there's an arboretum out there. Get them out there and just leave them. Don't unwrap them. The chef is coming out to put them on the trays. And we're like, yeah, whatever, man. So me and the buddies like, rolling across. And then we started whacking each other and hitting each other and it goes back and forth. And him and I fell into the pool, full of people in the pool, with 8,000 petit fours floating on the water. And it was just in the pool. And him and I didn't say a word to each other, got out of the pool, walked down the stairs, didn't punch out, didn't grab our street clothes, and just walked out the door of the hotel and never went back. That was it. It was just like, no, they'll kill us if we go back. That was like 10 people spent the last 4 days making those petit fours, and they're floating in the pool, so we're going to go. Yeah, it wasn't good.
So what does a retired David Adjey look like?
Well, kind of like this, but broke, right? I said to my kids, it's like, the only reason I had 3 of you, it wasn't because I was lonely. It's because I need to get housework done on the weekends. And because when I squander my fortune, I'll have to live with one of you. And you saw them instantly, 3 teenagers arguing, like almost coming to blows, like, I'm not taking them. There's no way. I'm going to become a priest. I don't want to have dad. It's like, wow, this is awesome. My kids are already fighting out who doesn't want me. So, yeah, just maybe a slower, maybe do another book. I don't know. The people that I'm with said, I thought.
Where would you live?
Palatial mansion, naked, or maybe like a flesh-colored unitard, just something, and a feather boa. I just want to be eccentric enough that people stay away from me, and usually the flesh-colored unitard will do it. I'm talking rolls in all the wrong places. What do I want to do? Yeah, maybe do another book. Maybe the one thing I talked about is to change the inequality, the pay scales. You look at this a great facility here at NAIT, and probably cooks are the lowest paid out of all the trades that come out of the school. And I'd love to take my exposure on television and be a voice for them and get some quality of pay. It's like, why does the guy that pounds bolts in a car make $70 an hour? Why does my electrician, after he gets paid, making $40 or $50 an hour, a pipe fitter, Or you look at those trades that come down, they're just guys that have gone to school for a couple of years and learned the trade. And why does a kid come here and go to school for 2 years and go out and really hone his craft, and then all of a sudden, you know, he wants to get paid $10.50 an hour, and $10.50 an hour is not a living wage.
And that brings me to another question: is what are your causes, or what organizations do you belong to that you support, those kinds of things?
I do Casey House in Toronto, anything to do with AIDS in Toronto. I do Kids Help Phone, because that's important, Children Aid Society, and try to do, if I put my name to something, I want to definitely do it on a national level, unless it's something local, like Casey House is important to me. Bloor Street Entertains is important to me because the money goes as well back to Casey House, and I lost a lot of friends. NAIT School's a phenomenal. Every time, I've only been here a couple days, right? So I'm really getting to get into it with the students. You know, I'm sure next year they'll get back to a normal chef for the chef in residence. You know, the one that their first choice couldn't make it, so then you know, they said, well, maybe Dave can do it. Maybe there's an opening in the calendar. It's great. Really pushing the students to look at it a bit different way. It was great being in the pastry lab and having so many of my friends talk about what was going on with the Facebook and the tweets that we were doing. It was really neat. So this generation will change it for all of us. So.
On that note, sorry, do you have one more question? You know, when you're working with young chefs like this, how do you encourage them in a way that you really hope will, you know, make them think about the food?
What's different? I mean, when I was a chef and you came and worked for me, there was a daily, I could spend time and mold you. I think my story is, you know, here I came from the ghetto, right? Most likely be incarcerated, didn't have a really bright future ahead of me, and by the ability to put food on a plate, which is not a very we're not cutting diamonds, we're not launching space shuttles, you know, it's a very simple thing to just put food on the plate. And I've had the ability to do whatever I want, travel around the world, have this much fun. And I think when they get that sort of thing to go, hey, if he can do it, I can do it. And I think what I do is I give them that thing that they might have thought was their dream and their goal way off in the distance as a pinpoint of light. I bring it to reality for them to say, hey, you can do it.